Nice. So one of the things that keeps coming up nowadays is the fact that everybody's on Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all of these other platforms that have to do with using video conferencing, meetings, classes, and things like that to attempt to engage with students or participants, depending on what the situation is. I'm going to briefly go through 10 tips for giving effective virtual presentations. And just so that it's not from out of the air, I've been doing some research on this, and the one that I'm going to share from today is from the Stanford Business Graduate School. Okay, and his name, let me make sure I share his name to give him some credit. Matt Abrams. He's a organizational behavior lecturer, author, and communications coach. And I also found something else from him. He's a professor of virtual communications at Stanford University. So the three quick tips that I'll give you first, based on what he has been teaching and researching. In preparation, you could do a little reconnaissance on your audience so you know a little bit about them, what they care about, so that you can kind of integrate it in whatever it is you're presenting. Doesn't matter the subject matter. If you get people's attention based on common interests, you're more likely to maintain their interest as you speak or present whatever you're presenting. So as you build the content, include the topics in it that are meaningful to them and work on building engagement triggers into the content. And again, you can get more into this if you practice doing it. So it's not something that you just listen to and then all of a sudden you're able to do it. That's just not the way right now. So many of us are used to teaching in person as opposed to over a screen. So there are some additional things that need to be taught, not just how to use the technology, best practices for using the technology, but also in how to present, how to teach now with this technology being your learning environment. It's a whole new world. It's not the same. The things that are different. So yes, you got to learn the tools, but you also have to learn how to present in terms of you yourself, the things that you can do. All right, so the second out of the first three that I'll give you for improving virtual presentation skills are leveraging the tools in, let's say you're using Zoom, to build engagement, like screen sharing, annotation, polling, Q&As, using the chat. They've disabled the attention indicator, so that no longer applies, but you want to have help so that you can be having people pay attention to the students, especially if you have multiple students. And if you don't have help, there's some other ways that you can do that. But giving them things to do, like being able to raise their hand, asking questions, and making sure that you prepare in advance questions and different things that are going to happen throughout that you can do so that they have to do something and aren't just sitting there and listening. But and then get them into video breakout sessions. So this group can go together and speak, this group can go together and speak, and then have them pair up and discussing whatever the subject matter is. It's also great if you give them the opportunity to choose from various subject matters or different ways that you're going to present a specific topic. And there's something called think, pair, share that he goes into further in his presentation. And I'll share the link to that actually. So you can see his whole presentation for yourself. You don't have to just hear it from me. But when they go into their breakout sessions, then they rejoin the main meeting to share back with the whole group whatever it is that they discussed. And again, it's about keeping them engaged and so they don't get bored. Being on Zoom and other things like that for extended period of time, beyond 10 minutes, if it's just one person speaking, the average person is going to start shifting, start slipping and losing interest. Even if they are interested, it's a lot. So that's a whole nother topic when it comes to the health aspects of being on this type of technology. But again, I'm just sharing some tips on virtual presentation skills. So here's the third out of these first three, and then I'll go into a listing about 10 of them continually that can help you with creating more engaging environments, learning opportunities for your students or your presenters, or your participants, sorry. Use language carefully. So that's the third one. The first one was prepare and how to shift and add things to how you prepare. The second one was using the tools in Zoom, leveraging them and getting to know them so that you can plan ahead how to engage and when, at what parts of what you're presenting to use them to keep the flow, the rhythm going. The third one, again, is use language carefully. So you can use engaging words like you or us or we. Keep it as personal as possible. Like I'm speaking to you right now. I'm not speaking to thin air, like I'm talking into the camera, nobody's there, but you get what I'm saying. Use their names, and hopefully their names actually show up on on the screen under the participants list based on how their devices are actually named too. They can change their names. If you don't know how to do that, that's another tutorial in terms of helping someone change their name in case their name says something like name of their phone or computer or tablet or something like that. You can change it to their actual name. Another way to use language carefully is to start sentences with imagine or what if, and other things that can help them start visualizing and getting them thinking. So I'm going to share the link to where you can find more of this, and also Professor Abrams' full presentation on this. But first, let me get into some other tips that he thankfully created and put out here for us to be able to learn from. So 10 tips for giving effective virtual presentations. What to know before you go live. So again, this takes us relearning as educators, as presenters, as public speakers. This takes us relearning how to do what we initially were doing face-to-face. It's different. It's additional to what we're used to. So it does take time, and you should take the time if you want to be more effective in presenting and communicating. So I'll just read out what he says and then maybe go into it a little bit, but I want to make this really quick. As audiences go global and you need to reach more people through technology, including things like webinars, meetings, conference calls, teleconferences, you have to consider the challenges to connecting with a virtual audience. He pinpointed 10 valuable best practices to ensure that we communicate more successfully when we're doing these. So, and I'm going to just go through them quickly and then I'll break them down. So 1, be brief. 2, be simple. 3, be a TV personality. I have some personal things about that, but I get the point. 4, be standing, like I'm sitting down right now, but it's okay. 5, be prepared. I get his points. 6, be assisted. 7, be specific. 8, be synchronized. Transitions. 9, be connected, and I'll get more into that. And 10, be early. I'm sure you can already assume why you would want to be early to your own presentation or meeting or class, but I'll get into that. So the first one again, we're going over 10 valuable best practices that ensure that you will communicate more successfully if you use them and make them your own. Be brief. If you haven't figured that one out by now, attention spans are like, what were you saying? Gone. It's getting worse. So you don't want to drag on anymore. You got to Twitterize everything, and then you can go more into it. But in terms of initial presenting, audiences begin to lose attention roughly 10 minutes after hearing the same presenter. So if you have more than 10 minutes of content, being brief means using interactive activities to keep your audience engaged, like taking polls, giving quizzes, asking for their opinion via chat messages, doing all sorts of other things, but we'll get into some of those options, how you can create engagement activities using Zoom. That's another video. Be simple is number two, for best practices of how we can ensure that communication is happening successfully using these video conferencing media. Keep the slides simple. Avoid too many words, graphics, or animation features. Less is more, because the longer that they're staying onto your screen and focusing on the things on it, sometimes the less that they're being present in the moment with you, as if you're like talking to each other. And I'm using some of my own interpretation for some of these things. You can use your own once you go to the links yourself. But just doing what I can based on what I have experienced myself. Three, be a TV personality. So this one I said I had some personal like with, right? I prefer people to just be themselves. But I understand the point of what he's saying. You have to both educate and entertain now. And that doesn't mean making a fool of yourself, but keeping people engaged takes something that's more than just them learning. They want to learn, but they also want to enjoy it. Okay? And if they enjoy it, then they'll actually learn more. So they build off of each other. But basically what he says is look straight into your camera, not the screen. So here's the difference. I'm looking into the camera, I'm looking into the screen. I'm looking into the camera, I'm looking into the screen. There's a difference, right? There's a difference, especially for long periods of time. The more I'm looking into the camera, the more it encourages them to look at the screen. Okay, so there's a interrelation there. Wear clothing that's neutral in color, no plaids, stripes, and again, I guess it depends on certain things. Light yourself well and from above. It's kind of scary when it's from below sometimes, unless that's what you're going for. Be mindful of what appears behind you, in the background. And if you're not using a virtual background, then even more so, of course. But, you know, just be mindful. And that's a whole nother conversation too, in terms of distractions that could keep your viewers, your listeners, your participants from your students, whoever, from staying focused on what you're saying and being fully engaged in thinking about it and communicating with you with it. And then invest in a good microphone. I'm assuming you can hear me because my microphone is right here and I'm speaking relatively loud enough, but I don't know. I should have tested that out before I started. That's the thing to do. Test everything out before you start it. Okay, so the fourth point of keeping your audience engaged in using these virtual platforms, be standing. And I think this is a suggestion because I don't think everybody's going to do it anyway, but understand the purpose for it. Even though your audience can't see you, stand when you present. This allows you to stay focused and use good presentation delivery skills such as belly breathing, vocal variety, and pausing. So it's about you remaining present when he suggests that you be standing. If you don't have a problem doing that while sitting down and you already are good with that, then obviously you don't need to be standing, but being standing kind of gives you that whole, I'm present, I'm in this, I'm doing something. I'm not going to be all relaxed and not actively intentional with my actions, my nonverbals, my voice, different things like that. Okay, breathing, all of that. So 5, be prepared. That reminds me of a Lion King song. But practice delivering your presentation with your technology before you have to actually use it, before the meeting starts. And I don't mean 5 minutes. Make sure that all the features work. Make sure that WAPA doesn't turn off your electricity. Well, you can't really. Another topic. Record your practice using the record feature of your tool and watch yourself. Listen to what works and what things can improve. So be prepared. All right. So again, I'm going through 10 best practices that can help you to communicate more successfully, especially using these video conferencing, virtual technologies, distance learning. And I'm going to go through the last 5 now. So number 6 is be assisted. Have somebody to help you if you can. We all would always want someone to help us if we had that option, right? To deal with the technical issues so that you can focus on presenting. Okay, so if you have the ability to, let somebody else field email, text questions, comments, nonverbal reactions, all those different types of things so that you can focus on just presenting. And instead of just asking them to let you know, I mean, just, it's going to be more, what's the word? It'll flow better if your participants aren't just asking questions randomly in the middle of you speaking. There may be some occasions where you want that, but for the most part, a lot of people prefer to be able to speak and then give the opportunity for someone to respond if someone raises their hand or puts a comment in the chat and all of that. But you presenting and paying attention to all of that isn't always realistic. Not everyone can do that comfortably, and it could throw you off. So let somebody else be your eyes and ears. If you don't have someone to help, see if one of your participants want to volunteer and do it, or a couple of them, just one way or the other, and that might help them to stay more engaged too. Find a way to make it so that you're not both presenting and looking at everything all by yourself. And that may take some innovation if you don't have help readily available to you. Okay. And they can help to facilitate the discussion itself also when it comes time for that. All right. 7, be specific. Ask pointed questions and avoid too many people answering at once. I kind of alluded to this earlier. And instead of asking them, are there any questions, try something like, who has a question about the solution I provided? Something more direct so that it's not wide open unless you need it to be wide open. And then set like a ground rule at the beginning that people state their names before speaking, especially if you don't know who they are or they don't know each other. It keeps it more personal than just speaking to a face, okay? And the more personal you can get it, the more connection is being built, the more it increases engagement, okay? 8, be synchronized. Transitions are critical. Connect what you just said to what's coming when you move from point to point. This is a general rule. It's not specific to doing video conferencing or meetings, but it's even more important now to help people stay engaged and stay connected. Okay, these are also good opportunities when you're transitioning to help people re-engage with what you're saying and whatever it is everybody else is talking about can connect with what you're saying and help you transition into something else. Pay attention to cues and things like that so that you can just make it more authentic. 9, be connected. Imagine your audience even though you can't see them. So again, this is about you connecting, just kind of like how the standing up was. You can place pictures of audience members behind your camera so you can look at people as you present. So you're not really going to be looking at them, you're going to be looking at the camera. But just the point is, give yourself whatever you need to make sure that you are also staying as present as possible, as if you're talking to someone and not just speaking to a camera, which you're going to be doing, but And 10, be early. Encourage your audience to access whatever it is you're using, Zoom or Microsoft Teams, early enough so that you can iron out any technical issues before it's time to start and get them comfortable with the technology in case they're not. Because that's the other thing, a lot of them aren't comfortable with all of the devices. People say you think millennials are comfortable with anything. You pick up a phone and they can just, but that doesn't mean they're comfortable with using it for the purposes of learning and education and engagement and all of that. So you want to go over the tools that they can use to raise their hand, um, turning their mic on when it's time, unless you're going to have somebody doing that. All of those types of things. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful. There's a lot more, of course, but we got to start someplace in this new world of doing everything distance. It's really, really crucial that those of us that want to be more effective in communicating and teaching um, take the time to retrain ourselves in how we teach, how we engage, how we present. Um, this isn't something that I just started doing. It's just now that I have another opportunity to learn more specifically how to do it and then help other people learn how to do it too. Okay. I've been teaching using Zoom and using Zoom for I don't know how long. It's a couple of years, maybe probably more than that actually. And even in my face-to-face classes, my students will tell you that I've been using Zoom to make it more flexible for them if they can't physically come to class to still be engaged. Okay. It is a juggling act. It does take a lot more mental capacity and craziness. Um, but it's worth it for them to be able to get it and to remain connected and remain engaged. It's absolutely worth it. So hopefully that was helpful. I will save the rest for another time. Any questions, feel free to contact me. You can email me, daramonifa@gmail.com, inbox me on Facebook or wherever else, whatever other platform you use. It's always Dara Monifa, like it says up there. Okay. So I did my master's degree in new media journalism. That's why I'm a new media journalist. And I did most of it on my phone, on my iPad, on my laptop, on the beach. It can be done. I've never set foot on the Full Sail University campus, Winter Park, but I now have a master's degree. And I did it all distance and using a lot of the same methods that I am now using to teach to uh, my current students. So use it if it works for you. Hopefully this was helpful. And look out for more videos and tips and things on how we can improve our communication using multimedia, distance learning, and so on in these wonderfully challenging times. Take care.